Well, nearly 60,000 migrants have raided the Spanish border in less than 48 hours as Spanish authorities struggle to contain the massive influx. Spain is now installing a containment barrier as a result. Spanish officials say that most of the immigrants have now left, while the army troops are rounding up most of the remaining immigrants, the migrants there who refuse to leave. There's also been reports of looting and lots of problems in the Spanish city of Ceuta. Well, let's bring in former actor, ICE Director Todd Lyons to discuss all of this. You know, Director Lyons, it's so good to see you. What is the message when you see these images? I want to go back to when that massive influx happened. 60,000 people on a city that has, it's about 80 or 84,000 is the population. What's the message here for Spain, and what's the message for America?
Hi, Rita. It's good to see you. I think the message is that if we're not careful, this could happen to us again. You know, the videos that you're showing now is, we saw this before in the last administration, right? You take a small town like Del Rio, like Harlingen, which almost had the same population as this Spanish city, and you can have the same situation here. When you have elected officials or, people from the Democratic Socialist Party of America that say, hey, let's have open borders, no more borders, let's have defund ICE, let's defund the police. You're going to see stuff like this right here. If I was an elected official, if I was running against someone in the DSA, I'd be playing these videos every day. I'd be playing this every day leading up until the midterms to show that if we're not careful, this could happen to us.
Yeah, how important is it, too, especially right now, given all the threats to the homeland? It's even more important to be protecting our borders. You have to wonder, and you and I talked, I know, while you were the ICE director, there were so many individuals that came in under the Biden administration, the quote gotaways. Spain says they've, gotten rid of most of them, but they're still trying to round up some of them. You're not going to get all 60,000, that's for sure.
No, we did a great job under President Trump's administration now. He allowed us to do our job the way it was supposed to be done. The men and women of ICE, the brave men and women of the Border Patrol were out there every day, getting those known gotaways. But there are so many that we didn't get. And you look at those videos, you see military-age males coming across the border. This is a terrorist incident waiting to happen. We got lucky, Rita. I hate to say that, but we truly did, because there are so many unvetted people that we just don't know who came into our borders. ICE, like we talked before, was an agency that was born out of 9/11. We were born out of the worst horrific terrorist attack on American soil. In open borders like this and a mass migration event will lead to another horrific attack. But you have just scores and scores of unvetted individuals that you don't know who are coming in, like you see in those videos. It's a scary thought because you just don't know who is coming into the country.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You have no idea, especially the quote gotaways. And in a situation like that where there's no vetting of 60,000, it is an enormous risk to any country. I want to move on also to talk about Director Lyons' New York Attorney General, Letitia James. She has directed law enforcement agencies across the state of New York to end their formal cooperation agreements with ICE, citing the state's newly enacted, it's called Local Cops, Local Crimes Act. It takes effect on August 25th, and it prohibits local agencies from authorizing local officers to carry out certain immigration functions. In other words, they can't cooperate with ICE. And this is stunning to me. They also created, it is called the Office of Immigrant Trust. They're actually going to go after the local the local agencies, the law enforcement, if they violate this. What are your thoughts when you hear this? And what can local law enforcement who want to do a good job and cooperate with ICE, what can they do?
Rita, it's a really sad state of affairs when we have elected officials and, when you have a attorney general or, a district attorney that wants to go ahead and pit law enforcement against law enforcement. That's not making anyone safe, right? Local law enforcement wants to work with ICE. We see it all across the country, even in sanctuary jurisdictions. We have so many local law enforcement leaders that will pick up that phone, work with ICE, because they know that working with ICE, working with the Border Patrol, working with the other federal partners makes communities safe. It just makes absolutely no sense to pit law enforcement officers against each other. It's really a sad state of affairs, because when you think about it, right, say NYPD, for instance, if they've already locked someone up, they've deemed that person a public safety threat. Why would you not take that extra step and turn that illegal criminal alien over to ICE, right? It doesn't make any community or neighborhood safer to re-release that criminal alien that can go and hide in plain sight back to the community. So hopefully these sanctuary jurisdictions will someday wake up and see that ICE is not the enemy, and that local law enforcement should work with ICE to make communities safer. But right now, they are not doing that.
Yeah, and that is really troubling. Many people are just shocked and wondering if this is going to be a trend across the country. Acting Director of the former one, Todd Lyons, thank you so much. It's really great to have you here. Thank you.